Hello and welcome to the Writers Workshop, where we take your submitted stories, read them out loud, and then do a critique of them at the very end. We have Milk,
Hi.
and I'm Flutter Priest. Today we're looking at a story called Luna of Arabia by Kuairu, which I probably butchered that name, and I apologize. Um,
I've asked him how to pronounce it, and I still don't know how to pronounce it. He's told me.
he's a really cool guy, though, so we figured why not? He submitted a story. Let's take a look at it. This is a prequel to a larger story that he has made and then put on hiatus. Milk, what can you tell us about this particular story?
It's about things that happen to Princess Luna out in the desert, and it's a thing.
Thanks.
I don't do. I'm not gonna even lie. I haven't read a damn thing in 6 months. I don't know anything about these stories.
Well, it's tagged for gore, adventure, alternate universe, dark thriller, and it's teen rated. Its description is death, loss, defeat. This is what Saddle Arabia felt after the Occult Empire began their war against them, using terrifying modern weapons. While many feel despair, there are some that feel hope after the arrival of one more mare from far away. She's from the land of Equestria. She controls the stars and has been in many wars throughout all of time. She believes in a united Saddle Arabia and fights the evil autocults to protect the innocent ponies of the unforgiving and harsh desert lands. She is the Princess of Equestria, Luna, otherwise known as P.E. Luna. To the desert, however, she is known as Luna of Arabia. Okay, so we got a war story.
Cool.
Which I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to pull off in a pony format just because pony is so lighthearted and stuff. But who knows? Maybe we'll be impressed. It's a very highly rated story. As far as, low red stories go, it's 20 up, 4 down.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? Let's just jump straight into it. Sands of Night, Chapter 1, 2060 words. Most don't know this, but it is very possible for you to die of the cold in the desert. When night comes, and if you do not have a shelter or started a fire before the sun is lowered, it is like the warmth is sucked out of you, and sand feels like snowflakes on hooves. In order to avoid this sudden drop in temperature in the middle of the desert, 2 occult soldiers set up a small camp on top of some natural structures of rock and stone, and grew a fire to blaze in the night. While the fire, which would have enough wood to sustain their camp, provided enough warmth to the troops and their special guest, it was a big sign of the soldiers' ignorance of a crucial rule in war. You never give your resting position away. "No! Get away!" one of the troops ordered in its own tongue, swatting away a little Saddle Arabian colt that was only a little bigger than the soldier's hoof. While the autocolts and the Saddle Arabians looked similar in stature compared to the average equestrian pony, there were noticeable differences between them. Thinner coats, thicker builds, and shorter manes usually gave away an autocolt to any Saddle Arabians. The Arabian colt felt a great kick and felt his muzzle break even more as the autocolt troops shoved him away from the fire and the water they were boiling. Ever since he was captured by the autocolts, they barely gave him any food or water, and this time was no exception. The colt once again tried feebly to get to the fire, and once again he was ordered away, now being forcibly kicked in the chest and sent flying a couple meters from the fire onto the cold sand. The sand felt like daggers to the poor colt's already sore body, wounds received from previous autocolts giving him a proper welcome to the prisoner escorts. Now, as the only prisoner left, 2 guards were escorting him across a section of the desert their nations called home to, wherever they would drop him and have him publicly held hostage. He should have listened to his mother's servants, the queen wanting to make sure her little colt got away from the occult assault of the village. How much do you think this prince's price will be? One of the troops asked, ignoring the sniffling colt behind him. I do not know, but I hope it is high enough to pay for us as well. This fucking desert will be the death of me. If not the sun, then the night is where I will fall. The other soldier replied, rubbing his hooves together to get them warmer near the fire. He felt a sudden chill in the air, as if their little camp suddenly fell a couple degrees colder. Don't be so dramatic, the captain said that after his trip. We're free to leave for a couple weeks, but they say the night is now more dangerous than ever on account of the nightmare. Nightmare? The soldier asked, looking at his comrade with worry. What do you mean by nightmare? They say it is another equestrian, a magic user, powerful. She was supposedly from the equestrian's own army before she ran away from her post, choosing to fight in our lands for her own glory. They say she is bloody and brutal in her fighting, and takes no prisoners. She? It is a female fighter, then? The soldier inquired, raising an eyebrow. Both of them had never heard of a powerful female foe, even when the Saddle Arabians began using female soldiers in their armies. The Autocults took this as a sign of weakness among them. Yes, but do not underestimate her. She has grown into a legend in the desert, with few barely wanting to whisper her own name lest they be struck down. Shouldn't the Sultan have condemned Equestria then? If they know one of their own is here, then it should not be considered a declaration of war on their part? Perhaps, but we haven't heard anything from him yet. Like I said, her existence is like a legend of the sands. I personally believe it is lies told by those filthy Saddle Arabians in order to give their troops hope, and ours despairs. Suddenly, out of the corner of both of their eyes, the Autocults saw a bright light flash, and looked up at the source of the flash to see a star shining exceptionally bright among the others. Oh, wow. The little Saddle Arabian colt was inspired in awe. The star shining so bright that it actually managed to cast a slight shadow on all 3 ponies in the camp. Sizzlick! One of the soldiers chided, turning back to go to the colt and smack it again. Before he could make a move, he felt a gust of wind behind him, and he turned around again to see his comrade having mysteriously vanished. Eyes widening in alarm, he pulled out his rifle from his side, a Minotaurian invention modified for use with hooves, and swung it everywhere around him. The light above him died, and then one by one the stars went out. He gasped when the fire was suddenly extinguished, leaving only light to be the moon. The cold racing in, he felt his coat sting, with nervous sweat starting to freeze right on him. With wild eyes, he swung his rifle around again, standing on his hind legs and moving only the upper portion of his body to scan the area, leaving his 2 forelegs to hold the rifle steady. Seeing the little colt shivering again on the ground, both in fear of him and because of the cold, he aimed his rifle at the Saddle Arabian, deciding that the colt wasn't worth the price for the horrible assignment he and his partner were given. Right as he fired, he saw a blue hoof shove the rifle down, shooting the bullets into the sand right in front of the colt. Before he could yell, the rifle was pulled out of his hooves, and he felt the stock hit him square in the jaw. He was unconscious before he even hit the ground. Yasmir! The queen yelled, her eyes a rosy red mess as she cradled the only hoof of the saddle Arabian colt that wasn't bandaged. Oh, baby, thank the stars you're okay. You say he isn't going to die? No, your highness, another saddle Arabian replied, wearing a white coat that signified the stallion was a doctor. While the wounds he has sustained are serious, the healing magic given to him all but stopped the worst of the bleeding. With luck and time, the prince shall soon be healthy enough to walk. Thank the stars indeed, my queen, another stallion next to the queen said. She is wanting to talk to us to thank her ourselves. She is waiting to talk to us to thank her ourselves outside the tent. We should go see her, love. Yes, my king, the queen affirmed. Let us go see her and give her our proper thanks to have returned our beloved son to us. The Autochtones have done us a great harm to attack our beloved capital with their dreaded modern weapons. But you have done us a far greater good to rescue our son Yazimir from those cold-blooded killers. Thank you, Princess of Equestria Luna. The king and queen of Saddle Arabia stood outside a tent marked with a red cross, having just come out of it to check on their son. The prince, Yazmir, after his brutal capture and heroic rescue by the Princess of Night that stood before them, was wearing a dark blue keffiyeh headdress that covered most of her mane. The keffiyeh was useful in helping to protect herself against the sun and the blazing sand of the desert. Torches were lit around them, showing off a makeshift campsite that housed many troops and many more refugees from the capital city of Saddle Arabia. Standing next to the princess was another smaller equestrian whose mane was of a dazzling chromatic display of rainbow, which was slightly discolored by sand that clung to various strands of hair. She held a sword on one side and a rifle on the other, the gun having been decorated slightly with the moon and star symbols. Wrapped around her neck was another keffiyeh, but instead of a dark blue one like Luna's, this mare's headdress was sky blue, and when worn, it covered most of her mane. It gave her the distinct advantage of blending into the daytime sky. It was no trouble, your highnesses. While we were lucky that we spotted the fire, the guards got knocked out easily enough. I didn't even have to help. The princess pretty much had it covered in like 10 seconds flat, the smaller equestrian said, taking the time to wipe her hoof in her mane in a show-off display. Okay, pause. Really? A meme here? The 10 seconds flat meme? I'm sorry. It's so out of place. It's so out of place.
We're way too serious for memes to be a thing. I'm sorry.
Like this is such a serious story, and like I have my own little gripes about it, but no, bad Kuairu. Don't do it again. I feel like I'm training an animal. I'm sorry. Don't do it. All right, let's jump back in. Which ended up putting more sand in her mane, much to her discomfort. Yes, very lucky. Once again, I must thank you, Princess Luna, for choosing to defy your son's sister's orders to leave us alone, and helping us in our war against the Autocults, the queen spoke. The equestrian mare's eyes narrowed as the queen and Luna embraced for a brief moment. While we appreciate your thanks, the smiles of hope we see in your subjects are enough to us. Best to you and your son, your highnesses, Luna said, turning around and walking the opposite of the makeshift hospital while the Saddle Arabian royals went back to see their son. The mare trotted up to Luna, a question burning in her mind. You still haven't told them yet? Rainbow Dash asked. No, and I have no intention to, Lady Dash. While I would trust you to keep our true assignment a secret, even to the death, I would not trust the royals with the information that Celestia did authorize our mission to help them in case they were captured and tortured. If the Autocults knew of our involvement, then it would be a declaration of war, and their Minotaurian support would turn against us. It is a very delicate situation here, and while we do wish to protect the crown's interests in the deserts, we have chosen the Saddle Arabian side, and we must keep that choice a secret. Thus, making our actions a sort of legend among the sand has become our style, so to speak, Luna explained. As I have said before, Lady Dash, my offer still stands. I am capable of handling myself in this war. You are more than welcome to go back to your friends and family in Equestria. And what? Leave you to fall into another quicksand trap, just like the last four? Nuh-uh, princess. After 1,000 years up there, you're still rusty from fighting. And some pony has to make sure to keep your flank covered. And hey, who wouldn't want to kick some evil occult flank and look good in some turban while doing it? Nah, you're stuck with me, Miss Luna of Arabia. Rainbow smirked, tapping on Luna's side for good measure. Very well, Lady R.D. Dash. What? If you wish to risk your life and possibly even be tortured before you are killed, you are welcome to stay here with me in Saddle Arabia. Aw, what's life without a little risk now and then? Rainbow asked with a chuckle. Indeed, Luna chuckled as well. We must be off back to our own camp before we plan our next attack on their machine of destruction, the Bloody Express. With a lift of both of their wings, gaining the attention of several guards and refugees that have never seen Pegasi before, the pair of desert legends flew out and away from the camp, eager to rest and fight for the liberation of the Saddle Arabian capital city and for the defeat of the evil Occult Empire. Author's note. This is something of a test one-shot I wrote in the night after a day in the mountains. I don't know how I got to sand from being stuck on a mountain, but here I am. If you like this idea, please let me know in the comments. If the idea is popular enough, I will start to plan for a Luna and Rainbow's heroics and adventures in the desert of Saddle Arabia, which, out of context, he did create and then put on hiatus. So, that's the story. So, what do you think, Milk? You go first. Likes, dislike, room for improvement.
It's not my style of story. I'm not a big fan. Because action's such a weird thing in stories. I'm going to be honest. Action is very difficult to do, and it was done decently here, but it still feels very clunky in the way it was done. I do like the conversations. The dialogue seemed to flow very nicely, at least.
Yeah.
For improvement, God, that's where I completely fail at this kind of thing. Is how do I tell somebody to improve? Get good, 420, blaze it, all that. Just that whole string of lines, 360 no scopes. I'm sorry. God, I don't know. Just keep writing. That's the way you can get better. Just keep writing in that style. Keep doing combat scenes. Keep improving them. Finding spots where you falter and fixing them.
All right. Let's see. So, I like the concept here. It's very off the wall. And when I mean off the wall, I mean that I don't think a lot of people have done this before. At least I haven't seen something like this before. Maybe I'm completely off base.
Like the setting, or
the Luna doing a secret mission to help the Saddle Arabians in a war type thing. It's interesting because there's I'm sure there's other stories that have done the Saddle Arabian area before. My concern is that it's almost like too grounded in reality with like the guns and stuff.
If I remember the time of release, it was right around when Battlefield 1 was a big thing, and I don't believe it was a major influence. It was more of a historical influence in terms of why the story was written.
Right.
But
I'm referring to more of like a Desert Storm type thing.
Oh, well.
I don't know. I'm just saying that there's abilities to like they've already added like guns into this and they modified it for hooves, I suppose, but I mean, it's just really risky business because if if the guns are never like used to really create an element of suspense or to create an element of vulnerability within the ponies, you could have done the same thing with like swords, and it just kind of becomes edgy. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Like
It's
later, if Luna is just completely impervious to gunfire because she's so fast, or Rainbow Dash is too fast to get shot, then there's no point to the guns. They might as well be bows and arrows. And the reason why I'm saying that is because in this piece, there was no element that made it feel like it was an actual risk for Luna and Rainbow Dash. And considering that there's a quote unquote legend already of like the princesses and stuff, I'm concerned about that because I feel like with the lore that the autocults are not supposed to know that Equestria is helping them, the fact that a legend exists would probably already put strains between the Autocult Empire and Equestria. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm attacking the main premise of this and maybe looking into it a little too deeply. But I feel like the actual main premise itself needs a little bit of examination for like the real world politics, and that happens when you have to do world building here. And as far as like original world building, this isn't a terrible job because there's clearly some thought that's been put into this, and they're trying to do their best to really make it work here. um but i,
Hmm.
I feel like the the descriptions were really clunky, and at points were um mechanical. Like at this point, like it felt like it wasn't very poetic. It didn't flow very well. I had trouble getting through some sentences because some of the sentences were just too wordy. Um, and one of the problems with the action was that it almost went by too fast. Um, the idea with action is that a lot of people think that in order to make a quick paced action scene, all of the sentences have to go by quickly, when that's not the case at all. If anything, the time that you take to describe what is happening in the action scene and paint this very vivid picture in the reader's head, um, it kind of creates this slow time effect in which you can see everything that's happening second by second in order to create this really vivid action packed scene. So, if anything, describe, describe, describe when it comes to action. Um, and one of the things I did like that they did not bog this action scene down with like weird monologues and actions.
They
Um,
didn't DBZ it up. It was just a standard action scene where the events happened and the effects followed, and then the story progressed.
yeah.
We
Uh,
didn't wait 3 episodes for a spirit bomb.
yeah, no. Well, still at the same time, like you don't want to make it DBZ like ever. Don't
Hmm.
ever like do that. I'm gonna charge up for one final attack, like that. That's just cliche as balls. Don't.
Screaming for 5 episodes and then he misses.
Like you never want to dip into cliches just to get an action scene done with. Everything should come to a very natural conclusion. Like and that's where it comes back to the guns. Like if Luna's just like standing and like doing some big um like monologue, what's stopping the enemy from just like Indiana Jonesing and pulling up the gun? Boom! Oh, Luna's shot now, and that's it.
I feel like we need more of that though. Like there needs to be somebody who just has common sense about them, and like whenever a monologue happens, they just need to fucking get shot. You know,
Yeah, no, like that's good
that needs to
character
be all
development.
thing.
It's like if they're real people doing real things, like why wouldn't that happen? So I don't know. I feel like this isn't this isn't a bad story, and I feel like I just riffed on it a lot. And I feel like there is actual opportunities here for this to be good. There's a lot of good opportunity with this fic. But Kuairu needs to take a step back and really make sure the world is down pat and look at it from a big picture point of view before he really dives into these individual little missions and the character dynamic between Dash and Luna, and figure out what their motivations are for doing these missions outside of just Luna said we could do it, so now we're doing it. So I mean, a little more character development will go a long way for this fic.
I agree.
Not bad. Could be better. So that's what I got. I hope that's constructive criticism and not just completely riffing like crazy on this story.
Oh no, we completely ruined his self-esteem. It's game over. That's his last set of stories and chapters.
Damn it. Well, the other story is on hiatus, so I don't know.
It was a future anticipation kind of situation.
Well,
I need a drink.
Thank you for watching the Writer's Workshop. This was Luna of Arabia. If you want to check out the story, go ahead in the comments. Are we completely wrong? Do you have more suggestions for Kuairu? Go ahead and post a comment. And we will see you next week for the next story. See you around, everybody.
Bye.